All right, is everybody in? It's about time. Had so much luck last week. It can only go better this time. I'll let the countdown run out, and then we get started for those people that want to get in right at the last minute. Excellent. Upgrading from last week already. Greetings, programs. This is Let's Code a Full 90, where we take the next hour and a half, dig into some source code, and try to make the world a little bit of a better place. I'm your host, Rob Menching, and today, like we've been doing for the last little bit, we're into the Wix tool set. Sound good? Sound good? All right. Specifically, we're going to be picking up from, what was it, episode 3, I think, where we were trying to do incremental build, and we left ourselves in a broken state. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into that broken state. This is it. And don't worry, I'm going to go back and recap everything, see if we can put all the pieces back together and build something from here. All right. So let's rewind a little bit. And also I should say that there's been some improvements or some other bugs fixed in the last few weeks. Not surprising since Wix 4 is a priority right now. And there's been some other changes around this that I hope will make this actually work better. All right, real quick, what were we doing last week? Or a while ago. Let's look at some of our diffs here. Whoop. All right, so the big thing, I don't know if this is going to be able to do it. Yep. So what was the issue we found? We found that the librarian who creates lib files was not keeping track of the files that were the inputs and outputs to it, which means that all the MS Build work that depends on that file, those files that get the inputs and outputs, well, they weren't there. And so libraries that when they had files bound inside them were not participating well inside the MS Build. So that's where we had to go start. When I thought we'd be doing MS Build work, we had to go jump all the way down and deep into the build, into the compiler, and make all that work. So anyway, if you remember, we hit layer upon layer upon layer where we needed to go into the librarian itself and say, oh, now we're not just going to return the intermediate like we were doing before, which was right here, the library being compiled. We need to return a result that included the library and the set of files that were being tracked while we were resolving them. All right, so we did all that work. We got all this stuff hooked up. The problem was that to track files, we need to call into a service that the Wix toolset provides to say, hey, please track this file for me. And well, we didn't have that service in Librarian because, well, it never needed it. The good news is, in the act of fixing another bug, which I've forgotten off the top of my head now, I needed that elsewhere. So, hey, we now are going to have that. So we're going to go figure out how to pull that back out. Might have to go find that commit that I did to pull it in. Anyway, we now should be able to track files inside the librarian. So that's going to be one of the first things we do. Because from here, we go back up to where we build in the librarian, and we save. Let's see, library phase down here. Where's our code? We now call library save, and then we call layout files. And so this is actually something that's kind of interesting that I've come to understand, tying the Wix toolset and the MS Build together, is that we need to be tracking all the inputs and outputs of the binder of the compiler of basically wix.exe. We need to track all those and report them back to MS Build. So every single task that does that, we need to have this layout files operation done, because that's the thing that was writing the files that we need in the end that told us what the inputs and outputs were. And before, I don't know if this was always done in lit and things like that. I haven't gone back and looked at v3, but for some reason it didn't seem like it was necessary in library files, or maybe that's the root of the bug. That we're trying to fix, is that libraries blow up incremental build. Well, this file that tracks the inputs and outputs is very important for incremental build because it tells us, hey, this goes in, this came out. You can compare timestamps and say, have any of my inputs changed with any of my outputs? If they have, well, now you have some more, now you can do a build. All right. So we need to make sure this layout files always happens at the end of all these build steps. So I'm going to put it here for now and keep it, but it's something I've been thinking about. Is like, maybe this needs to be promoted and just be a thing. We always do layout files for every single operation that goes through the build command, which kind of makes sense. But for now, we're in the library phase. We've narrowed it to this. We may end up refactoring this up and out in the future, but for now, this is definitely better than where we were before. Here we have the librarian that gives us our result that has both the library file itself that we can save the output file, and then also the tracked files as part of the result that we now can lay out on the disk and move around, and most importantly, remember and write the files that say, hey, MS Build, these were the files that were inputs, these are the files that are outputs. Okay. So one of the big changes that I made more recently, and now we're going to switch back over to Visual Studio because it's going to start showing us our build failures. Let's see. This is in the library. I want to go back. Where were we just now? The build command, I believe. If I got that correct. Let's see. We want to jump down to our errors. Not those errors, but pretty close. All right, so there's layout files being called for our library. All right, we've now gone from where we were in Visual Studio Code into Visual Studio itself. One of the things that I want to point out here is that when we did this work last, there are these things called the contents file, the outputs file, and the built outputs file. There were 3 files that were used to track what was going on to communicate between MS Build and, well, the build command, whatever is going on underneath. The contents file is essentially the inputs file, and we called it contents because it's the things that are contained within the final output. So if you think of an MSI, all of the files that get compressed into a cab, all of those were contents. Contents are from somewhere else or owned by the user. So we don't want to get into a place where it's like, hey, that's a content file, go ahead and delete it because we're deleting something else, potentially very important to the user. All right, so those are inputs. Outputs or built outputs are the things that the build tool builds and are final outputs, aka the MSI. If you have external cabs, the cabs. If you have a Wix lib, the Wix lib is a final output. What else? A bundle. If you have a bundle, the exe that comes out, that's the final output. So those are the built outputs, the things that this build command created and put to the output folder. Now there's this funny line in between, or there's another set of outputs that are not built but are output. And these are files that are not compressed inside a cabinet, or not compressed inside the MSI, or not compressed inside the bundle. These are just external files laying around that you certainly can do. I know most people think, oh, it's an MSI, I'm going to cap everything and put it in. But you don't have to. And the same is true with a bundle. You don't have to put everything inside the bundle. You can have these things called, what are they called? Layout files. I think that are, no, not layout files. External payloads? Whatever. You can have files outside the bundle as well. So those are not built by the Wix toolset. They are copied from wherever the user had them, and they are copied into the final output location. So the MSI is laid down and any external files that go along with it. The quintessential example of this that I can think of was in the old days, the license.rtf file would end up being like stuck on the root of the CD because, I don't know, somebody said you had to. So if you open the CD, you could always double click and just look at the license file. It was something like that. So again, that's not a file that the compiler built. It's not an MSI, it's not a bundle. We didn't build that, but we need to put it in the correct place. We need to say, oh, well, this goes in a very particular place based off whatever you put in your setup code. So we need to put it in the right place. It is an output. It's not a built output. All right, fine. Output's not a built output, and it's also an input. So these are files that you have that are probably both in the input and in the outputs file because they get essentially just copied through. Now, before this change I made in the last 2 weeks, these files, there was these 3 files that were kind of tracking all 3 of these things, and then this copied file was not explicitly described in the outputs. It turned out that it wasn't necessary in the way MS Build was handled in Wix 3. It didn't really need to know that you had these files that were copied, that were content files that were just copied to the output as opposed to built. It needed to know the build ones separate from the things that were being copied, but not which ones were copied. And I got into a situation where that was our big problem. So I decided that, you know what, rather than add another file that would track the files that are copied, because this outputs file used to have both the built outputs and these copied outputs, I was like, you know what, I'm going to create one single file that then just stores the list of all the tracked files and what type they are. So as if it's a content or an input file, and then the path. If it's a copied file, where it got copied to. If it's a built output file, a built output file. So that's why these things are red. The contents file, outputs file, and built outputs file, they're all gone, and they've been replaced instead with this thing called the tracking file. I know, terribly exciting, right? So the tracking file replaces all 3 of these things. All right, so we bring this in here, and it turns out this .tracking file was also plumbed in through our build command. So this is provided on the command line the same as contents file, outputs file, and built outputs file were in the past. The difference is now there's a single file. So we'll go look at how that thing gets created here in a second. All right, which means we don't need to track these 3 files. Now, this wasn't really a big problem for the work we were doing in the librarian. All we had to do was start getting our stuff into the actual build system, and it didn't matter where which file it ended up in and all that kind of stuff. So now we have this new tracking file. And since we're here, let's go ahead and just jump real quick. So in the layout, the layout does a number of things. It kind of does the final, okay, it's now time for you to make sure that all the files that you wanted are all here in the places that they're doing, that they're supposed to be. And and we try to do things to make sure that we don't end up copying lots of files all over the place, because copying is expensive, can be really expensive. It's not like we're building an XE where most XEs are, some megs, maybe. We're often, not often, we can be dealing with like gigs and gigs of files. So we have this whole layout thing that takes care of moving files around or not moving if they don't need to. And it also is the last point where we, if we had any temp files, we go ahead and delete them. All right, so here you can see in layout, we do the work to transfer all the files that were specified. This file goes from here to there. And then as far as tracked files, we go through and we clean up anything that's temp. So if we go look at cleanup temp, this whole thing is pretty obvious. It's like, hey, for all of the tracked files that are marked as type temporary, and let's go ahead and look at all the types, go ahead and grab their path, get all the unique ones, and then go and delete them, and then try to clean up any empty folders from there, kind of thing. All right, so if we look at this, these are our tracked file types. One is the input. This is the stuff that used to end up in the content files, which is why this comment makes sense, content. A temporary file is a file that's built during the build process but isn't expected to stick around. It would just be complete noise and things like that. They're meant to be deleted. And in the past, we used to toss these in the temp folder, and we've been trying not to do that in Wix 4 at all and avoid using the temp folder completely, mostly due to antivirus checks. Antivirus sees the kind of things we're doing, which is extracting files, compressing files, moving files around, which I guess ends up looking like, bad or malware. And they get in the way, and they've had people that are like, oh, now I have to add the temp folder to delete all this stuff. Anyway, hopefully, and if we find any more, we'll try to fix them. All of the Wix temporary files live somewhere in the intermediate folder. Now, if you don't specify an intermediate folder on the command line to the Wix toolset, we do use a temp. But hey, at least now if you specify an intermediate folder, it's all taken care of for you. Oh, and by the way, MS Build always specifies an intermediate folder. So yeah, that's all good. All right, so then there's these intermediate files. And these are like temporary files. They're not meant to be going to the output, but they are different in that we want to keep them from one build to the next. There aren't a lot of examples of these files, but cab files are one of them, because there's a feature in Wix that is the cab cache, where we will keep all your cabs in a folder from one build to the next. And if you go from one build and then you build again, then you can hear then you can put the we'll compare the new cab that you're going to be building to the cab that you already had. And if we find that the files are all up to date in the pre-existing cab, then we don't have to do all the work of creating the cab. So it can save you pretty large chunks of time if you have a very large cab with files. All right, so that's cab cache. Then we have a built output, which are the things I was talking about before: MSIs, the cabs, the bundle, XCs, also the Wix PDBs. All these are built stuff, the things that get created by the Wix toolset. And then we have the copied output. These are those external files that get not moved, they get copied by their name. They get copied from wherever they were specified by the user to the final location, usually relative to the MSI or the bundle, things like that. All right, so we have these 4 types. And we were just looking at cleanup temp. That's not where I wanted to go. All right, hold on to you. Okay, layout. We were just looking at cleanup temp files. And cleanup temp files, yeah, so it goes through and deletes all the files, no big deal. All right, so then notice there's this try finally. So we try really hard inside the finally to create this tracking file. As in, if anything goes wrong above, like we can't copy files or anything like that, we still try to create the tracking file. In the past, there used to be like 3 or 4, three of these, one for the contents file, one for the outputs file, one for the build output file. Now it's just one create tracking file. And so we don't track temporary files. Everything else we do, we get a line for them, and then we just spit out those lines into a file. Not a real big deal. All right, so that's awesome. That creates the tracking file and stores it on disk. And so when we do a build of something, we'll go and look for that tracking file. All right, so that's layout. I don't know if we went into layout last time. I feel like we didn't. So that's all the work that layout does. And now we have a tracking file. And because I had a merge conflict here, I decided to leave it for us to look at. All right, now we need to go back over to the librarian. All right, now as part of that change where I was creating a single transfer file for, I wish I could remember the other bug that I was working on. It wasn't that long ago. Anyway, as part of that fix, in the extensibility, I created a new service called the layout services. Now, I don't think I explicitly needed it in the end for that fix, but I knew I was going to need it for this one, so I queued up this work before. So there's this new interface that can do things to create a file transfer for us, where we can say, hey, this file gets copied from that location to that location, or whatever. And then also the tracking file, which is the thing that we need to finish for this. So this new layout services exists. If everything works properly, we should be able to ask for the layout services as part of the librarian and then use it to track a file. So the way we often do that is up here in the constructor, we use our service provider. And the Wix toolset uses a very, very cheap, lightweight, simple DI system. It's nothing as fancy as all the other ones out there, but it's more than enough for what we needed. And it just allowed us to grab all these different helper pieces whenever we needed them inside the Wix toolset. So I'm going to say, give me this dot layout services equals this dot service provider dot get service. Please, I layout services. Yay, there it is. Cool. Now let's see if I ask to create this. Yes, read-only property, please. Thank you. But I don't want it public. Private, please. All right, there we go. So now we have the layout services. If you go way back when, we did all this work to resolve the file, say, hey, we're going to create this file, we're going to put this, and then, oh, hey, these are the files that were being bound into the Wix lib. Oh, we need some way of tracking those. Yeah, so we created this list, we return it. This is all what we just talked about. But we were missing this blank spot, and I just put this here to make sure it would break and point us right back at it. So it's time for us to track every single file that was being bound into the Wix lib as a file using the new layout services. And hopefully, with that, everything starts working. Okay, so I'm going to bring this over real quick. So I've been a big fan of Ncrunch for a long time. Gets me in trouble sometimes trying to keep it working at times, but what you don't see here is I turned off all the green stuff. So this just built the whole project for me, and then in here you can see it ran the tests. Here's the converter test. You can see, hey, look, it ran all those tests. It runs all of them in the background for me. Every time I type a letter, I love Incrunch. Actually, a friend of mine from college put me onto it a long time ago, and I was like, yeah, really? I was really skeptical. This is years ago. I was really skeptical of how useful it could be, and now every time it's like, it's so awesome. It actually makes writing unit tests kind of fun because you can see it happen for real, and then you can see these lines over here, which in Visual Studio, these white lines, these are actually from Incrunch. And these are showing that, hey, we have no, white means there's no tests covering this line. So Incrunch runs code coverage and all the way down. And go to incrunch.net. Let me see. Can I bring that up right here? Incrunch.net. Yeah, just in case you want to know where to go. Incrunch.net. This is the thing. They don't pay me, maybe. They don't sponsor this stream or anything like that, but this is a really awesome tool. It's totally worth it, and yeah, it's fantastic. Love it. Makes things a lot more fun. All this white says that we should write some tests to make sure that this bind stuff is covered, which kind of surprised me is that there aren't tests already, but I don't want to tackle that right now. I'd like to keep going into now that we have this tracked, we should be able to jump over to MS Build stuff, I think. Okay, so last time I ran the build, I didn't save it here, but it failed. So now we're going to go into Wix and build the Wix layer again. So hopefully this will build. Oh, import. This is my, I use PowerShell here, so this imports the Visual Studio 2022 development environment. Basically runs their batch file and grabs all the environment variables and puts them in here. So now I can run the Wix command again. There you go. Now I'll run. All right, so this is building the core Wix layer, which includes things like, well, all the build, the Wix.exe and all the build stuff inside it, including the Wix toolset SDK. Problem. Could not copy burn. Oh, the process cannot be accessed. It's in use. One retry, and this is the retry being treated as a warning. Hey, I hit it. This caught us somewhere else, and Sean and I were just talking about. I know Sean's on the stream. Then we hit this, and now I only get one retry. It's probably Visual Studio holding it open. So let's go ahead and turn that off and see if this will build. All right, so what are we doing here? We're building the new code, so I have everything that I need. Is that big enough? It could be a little bigger. Let's make it bigger. Which one? Bigger. There we go. That's bigger. Go to the end. All right, cool. And it's running all your tests. All right, so now this next one, make it a little bigger. Export. All right, so the next thing we need to go is finally we're getting back to MS Build. All right, so if we go to the Wix and to test projects, I'm just going to do most of this by hand. Okay, so here's the test data. That guy's running in the background. We'll go ahead and let that guy run while it's going. All right, so in here in the test layer, so I say these layers. So Wix source. So Wix 4, this is the root of the repo, Wix 4. The source here is all the source code lives in here. That's pretty typical, no big surprise. But the next folder down in the Wix toolset build are these layers. And we have many layers in the Wix toolset. I'm not going to go through all of them right now because it doesn't matter that much. We already talked about one layer, the Wix layer, that has the core build tools and the MS Build stuff and all that kind of stuff, which is why I'm building it back there. The test layer is the integration tests. And we, at one point, talked about calling it integration layer, integration tests. All those folders or all those names are really long. So instead we call it the test layer, and it contains the, it's the layer that comes at the end of everything. So everything has been built so it can use the Wix tool set pretty much the way it would be normally. One of the big things in Wix before that I've been working on all this is the ability to do SDK style projects with the Wix toolset. All right, unit tests are running inside the Wix layer still, so we'll let them finish. The SDK style projects are awesome. In fact, let's go ahead and look at one here real quick. Let's see. I'm afraid to close this because it's gonna, if I close it, the bad luck's gonna be that I'm gonna have to open it again. Actually, you know, there's one. That's all right. I'm gonna open a code window right here, just real quick. All right. So this is all these test projects that we have over here. Trying to get to a place where we have one of everything in Visual Studio. This is not there yet, but probably will need one at some point. So you can imagine a solution that has one of every single thing in it, and then some Wix projects here. So like, you know, CS project class library that is .NET Core or .NET, as opposed to a CS project class library that's NetFX. And those use different build systems. One's SDK style, one's the old, I don't know, normal style, I don't know, whatever you call that. So, hey, there's those two, for example. Here's a console. There's no console. Yeah, there's no console for NetFX. There probably should be one. Here's a web application for NetFX and NetCore, so on and so forth. All right. So, and then here's a VCX proj with a DLL. Here's a VCX proj with a static lib, VCX proj with a Windows app, so on and so forth. So these are native code kind of things. And then here's a Wix proj that creates a Wix lib that it uses the VCX proj DLL. So we're going to use this one a lot. And if we look at the project file here, all right, let's look at the library real quick, just so we're all on the same page. So what does this library do? It creates a component group. It includes the vcxproj.dll, which is this project right here. Let's go, you know, if we look at this thing real quick, see how ugly it is. Woohoo, standard. It's essentially straight out of Visual Studio, and there's no code in it. So it builds a DLL and nothing else. No, I don't want any insiders builds right now. Thank you for offering to build C# or C++ code. All right, so this gives us a component that will install the vcxproj.dll to a directory called application folder defined elsewhere, and it creates a reference to Wix UI minimal, which in the end doesn't do anything but add some additional stuff to this Wix library. I just wanted to test that. All right, this is standard. This is Wix 4. There's nothing special here. I've seen this plenty of times. What's new in Wix 4 is, doesn't understand. Let's make it XML. Is the new Wix projects that are based on SDK style. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but this is so much better. So property type, output type is library because we're building a Wix lib. If you don't specify an output type, you're building a package, aka an MSI. We have set the here to bind the files, which means take the files for the library and include them all into the Wix lib, which is the case that is the most broken that we need to fix. Yay. And then, hey, you need a project reference off to the C++ project so that it builds before trying to then create this library, because this library will include the file. If you build the library without having the Wix tool set, or without having the VCX project built, then it will not work. All right, so that's a different test. I want to go to, going back, users, Rob, NuGet, yes, packages. All right, so this is an area that still needs a little more work. Oh, cannot read that. That's all right. Don't need to read this mostly. So what I'm going to do here is I just want to make sure that I delete this SDK. So when we're building across the integration repos, we actually do NuGet restores across the layers. So that's how I'm saying this thing, when we build it, is going to build like you would normally build your projects, pull the Wix toolset from NuGet and all that. So I have the build system output, which hopefully has finished, to the artifacts here so that I can restore and bring this in, and hopefully this will just work. Okay. Whew, all that put together. Here we go. All right. The goal here now is we are doing what? Wix proj VCX DLL. All right. Are we in the right place? We're in the right place. All right, cool. So I should, if everything works, be able to just run MS Build here, have it build this project, build a DLL project, and then build the Wix proj, and give me a Wix lib in the output. And if everything worked and I built everything correctly, we will also have a tracking file in the output in our intermediate folder that will show us the inputs and outputs of this build. So, moment of truth. All right, MS Build, and I'm going to say, hey, give me a binary log, because if anything goes wrong, the binary log is the easiest way to figure out what's going on. So let's go ahead and do that. Oh, we have an auto response file, right? I forgot. Up in the root of the Wix toolset, we have an auto response file that makes everything minimal. So we're not going to see a lot of output from everything, but we're going to see enough. So C++ projects don't really make for minimal. They always spit out their things. And oh, look, I didn't notice because the Dll project is so large that it depends on the static library. So the Wix proj here depends on the VCX proj DLL, and the VCX proj depends on the static library project. Okay, fine. There's no code in any of these. There's just enough to, hey, there's something to build. All right, great. So we built and spat out the static lib. The static lib got included and built into the DLL. Wrapped around here. Just trying to see it. There we go. V6 proj DLL.dll. And then this got built out to source into bin debug, Wix proj, V6 proj, Wix lib. Yay. All right, that's awesome. So since I have this, we're going to use VS Code as Explorer since Explorer wasn't big. It's probably a way of making Explorer's font bigger, but I'm not doing that right now. All right, so let's go look in bin, and there's the Wix lib. Okay, this is fantastic. We're still building a Wix lib. All right, let's look at the OBJ. So in the OBJ folder, we will see the file list absolute. That comes from the standard MS Build common targets, as does core compile's inputs cache. Some hash they calculate in the system. Really? I don't need help with cache files. This is the absolute files. This is part of the like I said, the common targets that helps you do cleans. So if you do an msbuild-t clean, it will run through this and delete all the files that are listed in here. So naturally, every built file needs to be listed in here. That's great. This looks good. We built an obj wixlib, and then it got copied over to the bin folder. So that's good. And then we have this cache, which came from the common targets. And then we have bind tracking.txt. Guess what bind tracking.txt is? Shouldn't be that hard to guess. It is the bind tracking. Sorry, I'm a little disappointed. It's there. Yeah, Zach, I'm with you. Having to delete the package cache. There is a switch. Sorry, quick digression. Hit this comment. It's a good comment. The issue is having to go in, as I did here, to spit out, or I had to go and delete the Wix toolset SDK just to make sure that it was deleted and I didn't end up reusing one from some previous build, and it's really annoying that exists. I agree. And there's a command line switch that I've not explored yet that you can say do a restore without without caching, without using the cache, and maybe even other layers of caching, because there's several different layers of caching, and I have not dug into it, but it's definitely something that when I get around to it, I want to spend a little time, because it may help improve this experience. You could say, hey, do this, but don't use the NuGet cache, go straight to it. Haven't explored it, but it's in the back of my brain of something to do. All right, cool. Is there a Wixlib browser or anything else around in tools? No, there's no Wixlib browser. There is the API, though, that you could say, hey, that's an intermediate file. Give me the intermediate. Wix toolset.data is provided as the Wix toolset, and you can use that to read intermediate files, read library files, and open them up and get all the contents out and all that kind of good stuff. I mean, the data DLL is the same thing that the core toolset uses. So if you wanted to build said browser or some UI or some console app, that would totally be the thing that you would start with. Start with the Wix toolset.data and then build something that spits all the information out. I don't know, if we get really bored or people want, hey, maybe we could try that here on this channel if people wanted to go do that. I'd play that. We have to fight over what UI system to use. Is Bob here? I'd pick HTML. There we go. That'd be fun. Anyway, all right, bind tracking. I'm just trying to poke Bob, see if he's awake. All right, so input is this. So this is great. This is the correct answer, I think, right? We built the VCX proj to debug VCX we built the VCX proj DLL, there we go, to the debug folder, which is a funky thing that the VC VCX projects do. They build to the debug folder. And if we look back at that command prompt here, we can see that indeed it did pull it up. All right, so this is good. The only problem, and why I'm not completely overjoyed, is that I think, and we're gonna have to go figure out this as we kind of work our way through, but I think there should be outputs here that list the Wix lib as an output, as a built output. And I'm not exactly, well, I know why I didn't, because we didn't add a tracking to the library to say, hey, this lib is here. This was an output of the system. Yay, do something with it. So that's, there may be nothing that needs that today, but I don't think that's true. Anyway, so that may be a bug yet that we're dealing with here. But let's take a pause and think back episode 3, we wrote all that code, assuming that it's all going to hang together, that we would end up with well, back then we thought there was 3 files. In the end, it turned out to be 1, but it didn't matter. All we needed was the interface that would allow us to track a file and then reuse the layout files command that was used as part of building an MSI and a bundle and all that kind of stuff, and went back to library and added the layout to the building of a library, and poof, we now have this file. So, yay. Everybody round of applause, yeah. They need a sound effect. This is where people push the button and have a sound effect come around, right? Yeah, all right. All right, yay, okay. So what that means next is we're gonna do it again, I think. All right. Let's get a little organized here because I don't want to lose this work as I have the windows disappearing on us. All right, other VS Code. All right, this VS Code, I want to look at all this stuff and I want to just stage all my changes. All right. So now I've staged it. I sometimes do a git clean on my repo to just clean everything out, and I want to make sure that I don't accidentally delete one of these files. I don't know how many ads we have. Yeah, we have the library result, and we have, the library result are both ads, and that would be a real bummer. Now, I don't want to check this in because I have like launch settings for that test that we did, trying to just debug all the way through the wix.exe and figure out why and where the thing went, or where the code was not being set to behave correctly, but all right, that's great. Okay, so now that we have that stored, I want to go back, and I'm not sure how good this is going to look. All right, switch over to here, and I'm going to do exactly what I just said, clean. Show me everything that we get clean. All right, clearly I've built in here before, so let's go ahead and clean everything out. All right, back into our Wix proj, and build again. All right, yeah, let's just build again. Okay, so ms build bin log. This will open up the binary viewer. I don't know, can you see it? Can I make it bigger? Oh, I can. Oh, lots of little things in this tool that are done very well. There's some things I don't like. One thing that's missing, for example, is a dark mode, but hey, I mean, I should say all the good things before I say anything bad. I do wish there was a dark mode, but this tool is really fantastic. Anyway, so this is if you've not used it before, this is what you use to look at the binary log files that when you use the -bl switch, you get, and we can then drop in here. And so I've been spending a tremendous amount of time in this, making sure that it works, or trying to create these Wix targets that work correctly in the SDK style. Okay, so I just wanted to see if that would work. Let's close it. I'm going to rename the ms build to this clean build bin log. I'm just going to save it for a second. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to build again. And the hope here is that essentially nothing happens, but let's go see if that's true. All right, so the C++ projects look like they didn't do much, and there's that. The real way to tell is to go open up an ms build. Okay, so it's did not remember the font that I asked it to be at. Okay, that's fine. All right, how do we do that? We go into the Wix proj and we say, we look at the core build, or the Wix build actually. It's core compile. Skipping, that's what we wanted to see. Skipping core compile because all output files are up to date with respect to the input files. That's good. That's very good. And here's the list of inputs. And here's a list of outputs. Yeah, okay, this is great. So what is this showing us? This is showing that one of our inputs is our library.wxs. It is showing also that, hey, remember that file that we embedded in our Wix lib? Yeah, that's an input as well. Please keep track of that. Awesome. And then, oh, by the way, here's how we check our outputs. Is we just say, let's use the bind tracking file because we saw that it that it's the last thing that always gets built. So it should always be at least representative of the last timestamp of everything. Nothing should have a timestamp older than it. So it should work as a kind of a proxy for the entire build. Works out great that way. Target outputs. Right. And then the target said, hey, by the way, I built this file. That's great. All right. So interestingly, what's missing here is the Wix project itself is not in this list. So I'm going to write that down real quick. You know what? Actually, I've been getting a habit of doing this. All right, let's see. New thing. What do we say? The Wix libs.wix proj not in input list to core compile. There we go. Okay. We want to be one of the things we look at. Okay, cool. Outputs. But this is awesome. So the next thing to do is let's see. The next thing to do is to make sure that if we edit the VCX proj, that it builds and it causes us to build again. Let's try to do that real quick to make sure things are working. Zach asks why a text file is the output instead of the Wix lib itself. Because the text file gets written later than the Wix lib, because as we saw, it was library phase, it was save the Wix lib, and then after that, it was save. Oh, as the output instead of the Wix lib itself. Oh, yeah, that's an interesting point. So why is the tracking file the output instead of the Wix lib? That's a fair question. This is the simple case where we only have one library being built. When you have localization files, Wixel files as inputs, you can have multiple languages that will get built, which then will result in multiple MSIs being built on the output, which creates multiple outputs from the build, which could be listed as target outputs instead. Yeah, I don't know. It's the interesting thing is that it doesn't matter much because as far as if I remember correctly, nothing ends up consuming the target outputs of the core compile. So it doesn't. We don't need to list anything else as the target outputs. We could add the Wix lib there though, maybe. I don't know. Well, we'll think about it. Why isn't the Wix lib there? Because we've never needed it downstream. Essentially is why. But I don't know. All right. So that Wix bridge not being there is still bugging me a little bit. But what are we gonna do? We're gonna go edit the DLL project enough to then try to get a rebuild here. All right. So I'm just saving these so we can jump back to them if we need to it. No rebuild bin log. All right, let's see. I need this VS Code, please. Yes. All right, let's go edit the DLL project. Let's see, DLL, V6 proj, DLL main. All right, let's go make one change in this file. That should be enough to trigger it. All right. That did not work. Okay. MS build, new bin log, please. So what do we want to see? We want to see the C++ proj build, and then we want to see the Wix lib also build without any other edits. So to do that, I want to take a quick look at the, before we get started, start bin, debug. Can I zoom? Oh, I can zoom. Did that work? Oh no, just switched modes. Maybe it's a little better for you guys. All right, that says 1:06 p.m. All right, having fun, time's flying. Okay, so if we build, we want to see that timestamp change. All right, so let's go build. Edit static VCX proj. Oh, yeah, the static lib. Yeah, I thought about editing static lib. I wanted to actually do the one in the middle and just see if it did the right thing. So that's the one I picked right now. But yeah, I see that. All right, let's see. MS build. Okay. Should have had output. All right. Well, but who knows if it worked or not. This does. All right, here we go. So what do we want to see? We want to see. Hello? Oh, not shift, control. Sorry, just click on mail. There we go. Weird. Okay, sorry. Trying to zoom in. Took a couple tries. All right, down to core compile. And we want to see that it did. Yeah, see it did do compile. And hopefully it will tell us because input file is newer than the output file. Which is exactly what we want to see. Is that this DLL is newer than the output file. And Zach, to your point, I'll break this out a sec. To your point, it probably, if someone was looking at this, it may be nicer if they saw the Wix lib here. I don't know. I have to think about it. It's not a bad idea. Instead of using this file that is clearly an internal implementation detail, and exposing it in a place that you may look to figure out why is it not rebuilding or why is it rebuilding, and you're using this tool instead of seeing this text file, seeing that it was actually the Wix lib may make sense. I'll think about that. I will think about that. All right. Anyway, so if we look at the Wix build, we can see that, yeah, that's my build that I'm building out of my NuGet cache. Yeah, a whole bunch of parameters, all that good stuff. Okay. So we have incremental Wix lib. I don't know if we got even this far last time. I think we did. Yeah, 2 times ago, 3 times ago, whatever. A while ago, the last time we tried this, when we did this case, so we tried to rebuild and we edited the VCX proj, the DLL without our fix, it did not rebuild in this case, which means our Wix lib with bind files, when you build it again, was out of date. And man, that might even be a bug in Wix 3. I don't know, because I don't know that done anything in to make that work in Wix 3. All right, that's awesome. So that's the Wix lib working. Okay, now I kind of expected this to work. So this is all like, yay, for once the stream is going the way I thought it should, the way I expected it to, as opposed to all the last streams where nothing has gone the way I thought that it should. And we're about halfway through, so this is good. All right, so let's roll on into the next things that I don't know if they do work. All right, so let's see. Yeah, so if I look at my diff right now, it's just that line, right? Yeah, I just add that line. And if I delete that line, yeah, you're happy. Okay, great. So next thing, get clean -ndx. Yes, I am done with those bin logs. Let's move forward. So we'll clean everything from here. Yes, that's right. That folder is gone now. Okay, so now what we want to do is pick the right project that uses this. So I guess we're going to stay with native code because this I don't think, well, let's look. Oh, this is a merge module. This is for later. We're not doing this one right now, I don't think. Yeah, this one's not prepared. I've been hacking on this one, so let's not do that one. Let's see if the Windows app is ready. Oh, look, hey, this has what I was talking about before, the 2 Wixel files. We may find more bugs here. This will be good. All right, great. Yeah, this is all set up. Why? I need to teach VS Code that Wix projects are project files. Okay. Oh. This is the power of the SDK style projects. Add a test. Yeah, I think I have a test for the library, but I will definitely go back and do that. I want to jump and try this first, Sean, because I just want to see if this works. So this thing is actually more than I thought it was. Okay. Yeah, let's see. Let's look at all these things. So what is this consuming? All right, real quick. This is SDK style project, which means just like the new C++ or C# projects, you don't need a lot in your project file to have things just work out for you. So because it picks the right defaults. So in this case, we're building an MSI, so we don't need to say anything. And we don't have any of that. All we have to basically say is what are the things we depend on. So in this case, we're going to say we're depending on the VCX Windows app. So that's a XE project. That's native code. We are going to be dependent on the library that we were just working with, the DLL. There's that. And then also this project is consuming the merge module, which is probably more than we bargained for this first time around. But I guess we'll just YOLO it and see how it turns out on the other side. And then also this includes the Wix extension, the UI Wix extension, to pull that in. Now, if I bring up, let's see, issues, and we make this bigger. Wow, maybe not that big. Too many roles. All right, assign to me and sort by the oldest in v4.0. This is what we're working on. What are we working on? We're working on these first. Let's make it a little bigger. I guess we do have to make it that big. These first few things. One is merge modules. The next thing is the tag extension or any extensions that include things that modify the build. This one's not quite the same. And then linking with the binary wixlib breaks incremental build. So this is then the wixlib for incremental build. So this is all good. Add a, okay, whoa. There's an MS Build Tools VS Code extension I use. I'll get you correct explanation. Yes, I've seen that. I've been following. I should do that. Add a test you failed that you made before the change. Yeah, okay, we could go back to that. We could revert my changes, add a test, and then go forward again. All right, so these oldest bugs in v4 are the ones that we're tackling. And it looks like, well, not quite. I don't think the UI extension exposes what this tag extension does. So we'll have to come back for that one. But it does definitely include now a merge module and a binary wixlib. So it's essentially trying to tackle these bugs down here. All right, so let's just build it and see if it works and see what we get, because it's been a while since I built this. All right, so into Wix Proj package v6 Windows Pod. Yep, all right, this thing. Make sure we have everything. Okay, and this uses the SDK. That's good. All right, let's see where we end up here with a build. Build. Yes, that's all right. Well, let's see what we get. All right, C++ code, and that. Our identifier could not be found. Ensure that you've typed a reference correctly and that the inputs are provided. This says that my package reference was not found to Wix Toolset UI. Well, that's unexpected. But, well, I guess I haven't been in this one. We may just have to comment that code out for a little bit and come back to that one later. Whoa. Wait. That's the library that failed. The identifier here cannot be found. Ensure you have the reference necessary and inputs. Okay. So that's during the library project. Build. All right, let's go look at the library project. This built for us a second ago, and now it's not building here now. It does not have a project reference to... All right, so the error is telling us that, oh no, in this, that could not be found. Ensure that you have typed the reference correctly. Well, the library said it had a reference to, let's see, Wix UI minimal, even though it didn't use it. So let's see if this helps. This is interesting. All right, I'll try one more build here and see what happens. That did not fix it. All right, I'm gonna have to come back to this one. I'm gonna look at this. For now, I just want to take out the UI ref and see if we get there. something very unexpected has gone, and I'll have to go dig into that for a while. Okay, so here now, when we're linking, this identifier could not be found. Ensure that you've typed the resource correctly. Okay, so this says my package resources are not being. Oh, I wonder. Okay, let's look at the MS Build real quick. So this would say that, hey, it's not including this the UI extension, which is odd. But let's see if we can find our core compile. Okay. And see core resgen core compile this parameters extensions. Ah, yes. See, there's no extensions here. Yeah, there's no extensions here. And all right. So on to the first unexpected thing that we've hit real quick and see if we can go hunt this down. I think up here, resolve extensions. Yeah, I don't think we could. Let's see if I need to do a restore. It could be that I wasn't sure why I didn't need to do a restore the first time. Let's see what happens. MS Build restore -bl. You're right. It was the restore. Okay. Shoot. All right, let's go back. I want to see this. All right, get status. What did I change? I took it out, right? Okay, that's fine. All right. Everybody out. Okay, now. Wix proj. Proj package. Not that one. Yes. Problem with naming these things in a way that's logical, so you can just look at them and see, oh, okay, that's a Wix proj or the library. That is that they all start with the same thing, so tab completion does not work as well. Anyway, okay, all right. So now, without the restore, everything clean. We should see this busted. And Zach guessed correctly. The problem is that we don't have a package restore, and because it's a package reference, it did not go out and get this. All right, so. What does that say? I guess. Yeah, so I'm thinking about. There's no hint here to tell me that I needed to do the restore, which totally makes sense. So what happens behind the scenes when you do a restore is that this package reference goes and fetches this NuGet package, updates a bunch of pre-generated MS Build files that then modify what is imported into this project as part of the build. Most importantly, as part of that import, it brings in the extension statement for this that says, hey, you can now use the Wix UI. It does all that import hookup during restore. So by not doing restore here, I don't have any of that, those things hooked up. And we can see that if we look in the OBJ folder, yeah, see, there's nothing that would have been restored. It's just these are the files that expected to build, and it failed to build anything. So this is in that C+ Wix project we just looked at. When we do a restore, we will see more files being created in our intermediate folder as part of the restore process, which is part of the common targets as NuGet targets. It's the NuGet targets imported by the common targets. All right. So the thing was that if I had to pause in here and sit and think about it, then someone else is going to hit it. So I think probably what needs to happen here is that the error message has to get updated. Because it's not until the linker, it's at the linker at the end that knows what is needed. So we have to get a message all the way back to say, hey, you're missing an extension. And in the past, you used to have to like type them all out. Yeah. Don't CS projects complain about a missing assets JSON or something, I guess. Yeah. Well, I think they need it. CS projects need it, so they end up failing because they end up needing it. We don't need anything necessarily as part of that. Yeah, it's interesting because when the compiler runs, or sorry, when MS Build runs the restore, it just writes these files. We don't know beforehand whether you needed them or not. Unless there's something we can look and say, if there's a package reference, there should be one of these generated files. All right, well, that's the next thing to try to write down is see if there is some way to detect that restore should have been run before a Wix proj is built. For example, cs proj files complaining about assets.json. All right. Well, was interesting. The things you find by using the software. All right. Worst comes to worst, I'm thinking we could definitely add something to this error message. Yeah, see, in the end, it turns into, all right, what does Wix 94 mean when you hit this point? And you're like, well, when you search the internet, Wix 94 is going to say, hey, did you restore your project? Or did you reference your package? Or did you reference the correct package reference? And if so, did you restore? But it'd be nice if we just improved this message to include restore in the list of all of the things. Last time I did a search similar to this, the best suggestion was to manually parse the assets.json file and compare that to the package reference you expect to see. Yeah. I hope not. That's kind of ugly. But it would be possible. Probably. All right. So with that, let's do the restore. Let's see how far we get this time. We succeeded that last time, right? And we include the UI ref here, so that's good. All right, so let's break out Orca, bin, debug, enus, because there's two of them, Wix proj pack, MSI. Boom, that's tiny. Let's see, view, tools, options, there we go, options. Font, change font. I don't know, 22? That looks plenty big. I don't know if I need to do that because I don't know if the contents matter a whole lot in here, but property. Files. Let's make sure we have our files. So there's our app, our Windows app, and then there is our DLL and then our WinForms coming in. The WinForms and NFX XC, I thought that came in through a merge module. Oh yeah. It did. You can see it right there with a fake GUID on it, a fake module ID, 0001. All right, so the merge module came in. Okay. All right, that's actually pretty good. Okay, let's take another spin through. I don't know, let's just I'm curious. Make sure that the inputs look. All right, so there's the restore command, not usually terribly interesting. Drop down to core compile. And there are two compiles, one for enus and one for JAJP. And target outputs are those two bind files. There we go. That's good. And the parameters here. Yep. And our extensions. Yep. Okay. Oh, it's still too small. Sorry, forgot to zoom in. Zoom in. All right. Yep. And there's our library file. Yeah, okay. This is all laid out quite well. Okay. Let's see what happens when we get here. Let's not do a restore. Let's just do another one. No rebuild log. Yep. Here we go. Oh. Always gets me. MS Build and their colons. Oh, wait. Yeah, something built there. That paused for a moment. Oh, we have a merge module in the mix, and we haven't done anything on merge modules yet. So there's no reason to assume that that's going to work. But let's go see what happened. Yeah, see, that's a problem with search. I always want it to work, but ends up finding too many things, so I just want to look at this one. All right. Core compile. 1 second. Building completely. Why? Ugh. Input file. Test data Wix obj library. Well, yeah, it does not exist. All right, cool. That is actually quite cool. Are you the same reason? That file does not exist. Okay. What the heck is that noise, right? Yes, right. So, yes. What is that? Well, that is, let's see. Where did that come from? That came from our tracking file. So let's go look at our tracking file for our, oh, not that window. Other VS Code. This one. DLL, Windows, Wix Project, Windows app, bin debug, obj, debug. Yep. Hey, there's project assets. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. All right. Sorry. Got sidetracked staring at that. All right. Debug. I want to see the bind tracking file. Do I have a scroll bar? I don't have a scroll bar here. That's interesting. Maybe I do I when it's smaller? I don't have a interesting. VS Code doesn't give me a horizontal scroll bar there. All right. Let's look at ENUS. All right. Here's the tracking file for ENUS. So our built outputs. This looks good. We had our MSI, our external cab. That's just the way I had it built. And then the Wix PDB. And here we can see our inputs, which are the input of the exe itself. And then from the WinForms module, the merge module, this file was an input. And remember how I said that we're not using the temp folder? Well, in the past, your merge modules and binary Wix libs used to be extracted out into a folder far, far away. Well, now they're extracted right here. And then here's the VCXproj DLL that was extracted out of the binary Wix lib and is missing. All right. This is good. This is kind of what I expected to see. The issue is that this file, when being these two files, actually both of them, both of these files, when being extracted from the, sorry, let's just do this one first. This file was placed inside our Wix lib. So our Wix lib is built. It binds its files, which means all the files are taken and compressed inside the Wix lib. And then when you use that Wix lib later, well, obviously the files have to be decompressed so that they can be in place so that the cab API can then suck them up and put them into the appropriate cab. And this file is there. And then during the build process, we can see obj debug enus. Merge modules are still there. Oh no, wait, it's here. Is this it? No, that's the MSI in the Wix lib. Okay, so the merge module file is still here on disk, but the binary Wix lib file was cleaned up. At the end of the build, this file was deleted, which makes, well, I can see how that happens, because it used to be considered a temporary file, so we were trying to delete or clean up after ourselves, so the temporary files. Now the merge module is doing the right thing and leaving its file here. Whoop. I did that again. This file, which is why our incremental build is working for merge modules. That's really funny. I thought there was a better chance that our incremental build was going to work for binary Wix libs before it worked for merge modules, but it looks like merge modules are already on the way. Okay, so that's good. I guess the thing then to figure out is to go find the code where the binary Wix libs are extracted and placed on disk, namely this location here, and then why it was cleaned up, because it can't be cleaned up as part of this build. It can't be cleaned up because it's input into the next spot. Now this is interesting. So are these, yeah, so looking at this now, clearly the Windows VCX proj is an input. I don't think these two files are inputs. These two files are intermediate files. These two files are intermediate files. They're there. They need to stick around from build to build to do optimizations, namely incremental build, but they're not inputs. They're just intermediate files. The input is actually the Wix lib, which is not listed here, and the merge module, which is not listed here. The merge module and the Wix lib that contributed to the build are not listed as inputs, which means if we were to fix this, let's say, and these were no longer inputs and no longer creating this problem, they'd be in place. If they were intermediates instead, then, and we edited either the merge module or the Wix lib and rebuilt, this would not get built again. It's interesting. That is interesting. All right. This was harder to see in the past when there were all these three different files. You kind of had to, they were, inputs were in the contents file, the built outputs were in the built outputs file, the intermediates, I forget, I don't know, they were listed, I think, in the outputs file as well were the built outputs. The outputs file had both of them. So now that we can see all this in one place, it kind of helps. It helps a lot, actually, kind of sort through some of the ideas here. All right, let's try, well, let's open Visual Studio again. And in Visual Studio, there are not a lot of things that are tracked type file inputs. So here's our librarian. So if I search this whole solution, which is the whole core tool set, and I say, go find all of them, those files are being tracked. So we should be able to find them pretty quickly. All right, where is this? This is extract embedded files. I think this is the thing that is called, when we're extracting from binary Wix libs. And notice how we track the file as temporary. Yeah. See, so here, this file gets tracked as temporary. And if you remember when we looked at the very beginning of layout files, temporary files were deleted, but they were not written to any, and not written to the tracking file. And if we look back at our VS Code here, we can see that this file is missing from the source tree, and of course temporary is not here. Now you're saying, hey, but why is it listed as an input? Well, it's listed as an input because it ends up inside this cab, and that as part of putting things in the cab, they all end up, as part of being put in the cab, then they all are, it ends up as an input there. Entirely too many words to say this. Simply, this file gets extracted to disk and then listed as an input to this cab. And I think one fix is that this should not be temporary, but it should be intermediate. All right, so if we say that the file is extracted from the process, that this is an intermediate file, it's going to get listed in here along with this cab as a file, and yes, it's going to get listed as a intermediate file, and because it's no longer temporary, it will not get deleted at the end of layout. So that should cause this file to still be here. That's a good thing. Now, the other thing that's interesting, oh, and by being intermediate, one of the things that happens is that all the built files and all the intermediate files are tossed into the absolute file outputs. Where's that? I need to make this bigger because I can't scroll it. Remember I said this list is for clean. So if we look in here, we can see, see the cabs are listed, the MSIs are listed, and those kinds of things, including the OBJs. But I've lost it. Where'd it go? There it is. But notice that this WinForms merge module thing here, WinForms module, it's not listed in that file, which means it's not going to get cleaned. If we do a clean, this file is going to end up being left over. All right, I'm going to write that down just to make sure I get that test verified. So MSM extracted files are not listed in the tracking file such that they can be cleaned. Okay. All right. In other words, don't get added to the file rights. File rights is the internal name inside MS Build for the things that get put into the absolute. I can't remember. I know the MS Build name for it. What's the name of it? Absolute, whatever. The absolute files. I want to know. File list absolute.txt. Anyway. Okay, so that's another thing. Now this being marked as an intermediate means it would not be deleted, it would be here, and that might be enough to fix it. Okay, that's good. Let's go jump around inside the code a little bit more and see if there's any more things we have down here. Okay, these are probably too small to read, but I don't want to look at burn right now. I want to stick to the MSI's merge modules right now because burn doesn't have merge modules. So we're looking at where merge modules come in because they're not being listed. Create cabinets, generate. Well, let's try this. Merge modules command. Wow. All right. Random thing. The Wix tool set was a long, I don't even know how long ago it was actually. In Wix 3 it was quite a bit. The files that did work were generally very, 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 very large and just organically grew over time. And it was just a whole lot to understand and process. So over time in Wix 4, we've been taking chunks of code and rather just make them functions, because even if you make the functions, the files end up still being really large, and breaking into things that we call commands. So there's a way that you can wrap up all the data that is necessary to do a particular operation, sub-operation inside the Wix tool set, and then wrap it up and then call it. In the end, it's essentially just a function call, but by wrapping it up in commands, it's a way of getting a whole bunch of code tied off and moved onto a separate place going, here's a thing. And sometimes they're reused, but almost all the commands are like single purpose things in there. Is file absolute supposed to always be absolute paths as relative file paths? I don't know. It's always been absolute for me, I think, but I haven't played with much. I haven't messed with it. I just make sure that everything's in file rights, and then you can go do that. But file rights is a convention, so if you add relative paths to it, it may leave them as relative paths. I think I'm careful to always add full paths to it, so that solves that problem. All right, merge modules. So this is where we do the work to merge modules. First thing we do is, that's the merge command. Let's see. This is not where. Yeah. Okay. So what do we do here? We get all the merge symbols. We open our database that we are creating, the MSI that we are creating. We go through all the merge symbols. So if you see row syntax, that's usually old references to old Wix 3. This should be called Wix merge symbol, not Wix merge row. But throwback to Wix 3 terminology. All right, all these symbols are things that we operate on, and then we call merge ex, and we do the merge, and then we connect, and nothing in here is about the files. because, scrolling up and down looking for the files. Yep, no, open module, do the merge, and then make sure it connects to the correct features. That's the merge module API. So this is not the one we want. So now we're in bind database. What we want is the one that, contains merge modules. So one of the things that the Wix toolset has to do, it's right here, the name of it is perfect. Before we merge the modules, we need to get the files out of the merge module and know where they're going to be going to set up all the, to calculate a whole lot of other things based on like auto cabbing and all kinds of things. We need to know the whole list of files that are going to be coming from the merge modules before they come from the merge modules. So here is where we create the references to those files inside the backend, the binder, by actually opening the merge module as a database and reading the tables out of it. So this is what happens. All right. So these are all, and this is extracted, right? Yes, create. Trying to see if we're actually going to extract here. All right, let's see. We create the facades. We are detecting duplicates. So if someone gives two merge modules that both have the same file ID, we will give a nice error message here saying, hey, these two merge modules cannot be merged in it. Extract files from merge module. There we go. Cabinet, combine that cabinet, do that, cabinet, extract to this path. And then we're done. Yeah. Notice something is missing. We extracted this entire cabinet, but we did not track the files that came out of it. And then this gives us the output of the run. Yes, and yep. So this shells out to wixnative.exe, which is a thing, and tells it, hey, please extract this cab and give us all the files in it. All right, so here, if we're going to track these files, and we should, we need to include them in our file tracker as, I think we said, not temporary files, but as intermediate files. And oh, wait. No, merge path. Wait. So we created facades. We already know where all these files are at. We know the list of files already, and then we should know where their source is going to be set to, which is going to be this intermediate folder, the merge folder, merge ID, record 1, which if we go back and look at our files, that's the name of the file. Yep, there it is. Name of the merge module, name of the file ID. So we do know the source path. We know all of them. They were all added here because what we do is we magic up a file symbol for them. We basically say, hey, there's a merge module. When we built, before we were building, we didn't know how many files were going to come from merge modules. But now that we have the merge module, let's go through the file table and figure out every single file that we're going to get. And then so that we now will have the complete list of files before we create the MSI. Because we don't want to depend on the merge module, just shove all its files in the MSI, because then we'd be like, how big were those files? Where were they all laid out? We need to create a cabinet from all those, all that kind of stuff. So that's why we extract the files up front, make sure we track all their information up front, and then we go from there. So this is the symbol that we need to do that. And here's a source, and here's the file path. And so we could do it right here. We could track it, which is probably the right place to do that. Actually, once we add it to the collection is probably the way to do it. Right? Because we don't extract. Where did we extract the files? Create the file facades. If it contains files, then we extract them. So we can either do it based off the facades, Or we could scan the directory. I'm inclined to do this from the facades. That seems more correct. And if it gets out of sync, then it's a matter of making sure that the file symbol, the wrappers around all of them is correct. Yeah, and see here we're keeping up the indexed files as new, yeah, facades are added. Okay. Track where the extracted file track the extracted files track the files extracted path. I don't know. I'm still not happy with that. Well, we're getting close. All right. This dot layout services dot. I don't have layout services. I don't have things I need. Okay. I have the backend helper though. I think the backend helper will. Yeah, it has layout services. All right, cool. That's right. So I create layout services, and because the backend helper, the thing where you do lots and lots of file processing inside the core tool set, already had the things I need, the track file and those kind of things. And I just lifted the layout services out of that interface so anybody could use it, but then all the backends still needed it, so I didn't make them go off and get the layout services. I just go ahead and said, hey, you know what? You could still have track file and all that kind of stuff. So, all right. So I can just use it here. Merge module facade dot source path. Yes, that's where it's going to be placed. Track file type, please. And what are we doing? Intermediate? Yes. And what is this? The last thing is source line number, please. Yes, source line number. All right. What source line number? I want it. Oh. Yeah, it's all going to come from the merge role. So that's fine. If I ask, does the facade have it? Merge module facade source line number? Yes, you do. Thank you. Okay. So I think with this set of changes set up, both here and here, right? So here, where the merge module's tracking all the files it's going to be extracting, and here where the Wix lab extracts all of its files and I keep track of them, we should now have both of those listed as intermediates in our tracking file. I think that's pretty good. That's pretty close. That's pretty close. All right, so what does that get us? That means they're no longer tracked as temporary, right? Because this was tracked as temporary before. Yep. Temporary. Yep. So these are now tracked as intermediate, so they should not be deleted, which will get us one fix. And now I need to go back to here. Nope, other window. Keep getting the wrong one. Oh, I think I solved this. Solved. Also, merge modules and Wix libs need to be listed as inputs to package, as inputs when used by an MSI or a bundle, etc. All right, so this I don't think we fixed. This is the thing I think we just did, just by taking a swing at it. Okay, so what I ended with 1, 2. Wix was probably not listed as inputs. All right, so I have two things. Let's put these guys together. Things not being listed as inputs, and some way detector for store has been run to get us a better error message. That's good. And then I think we've solved this. get there, though, it's going to require me to rebuild. And I don't think we're going to have time for that. Maybe we'll. I'll kick the build off and we can see where we end up. All right. I'm going to delete my package cache real quick. And kick that off. All right, so let's take a quick look while that's running. Is this the right one? Yes, I think it is. Show us the set of files. Oh, it is. Huh. All right, stage changes. What changes have we made this time around? Okay, I don't think I'm going to want to keep those changes. That was in there before. All right, so what did we do? We the extract files is now intermediate. The extract merge module has fixed the comment there, and then is tracking its outputs. The merge module is being extracted as intermediates. And then also we did work in the librarian, right? To fix the layouts, to add the layout services to the librarian so that it could track its files. Right here, track file. Oh, wait. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, these changes is not going to be enough. Yeah, so this is a thing I've been debating. Oh, no, this is fine. This one is doing the right thing. Tracked files. Our build is for naught, but at least this is why we always look at our diffs, kids. Yes. This is a thing that I continue to debate. The layout services track file gives us the ability to track a file, and it hands it back to us. It does not internally store the tracked files so that you then get them later. And it could, and given the way we use it, it would probably work. The thing is that then we have a service that's coming out of the DI that's maintaining state. So if we ever get in a situation where we want to build twice, or we want to do a whole bunch of work with, tracking a bunch of files and then track a different set of files and have them go to a different place, if the layout service maintains state, we'd have to have some way of telling the service to clear itself. And that all gets weird. So that does not work. Will not work. So instead we have to... So this track files, we have to track our files. Let's see. So, when we execute, we don't have any tracked files. So that's cool. Tracked files contains files. Okay. So this may just be a simple thing of, just like extract command, this extract embedded files, has this .tracked files. Yes, thank you. I essentially need the same thing. Yes, right there. Merge module facades, right. So now instead of one output, we have two outputs. This is the other nice thing about commands, the way that we write them. Going back to what I said before about commands, or how we broke up functionality into commands. It's easier to have many or multiple outputs. So you can have these public properties sticking out of it that have private sets, so we can set the value inside and just have it. So in the command, you execute the command, and then the results come back as properties on the command object. You're like, here, execute this, and you're like, here you go. Here are your results, as opposed to creating another object and returning a whole bunch of stuff. They execute when you have to have multiple of them, so it's kind of nice in that way. All right, so that says I need to do var tracked files equals new list I tracked files. Yes. Oh, missed the tab. That's sad. All right, that's tracked files. Merge module facade. Oh, wait. Did it just say that? Wow, look at that. This .tracked files equals tracked files. Yes, that is exactly what I wanted you to do. How did it figure that out? I'm impressed. For each symbol, do that. So again, it got it right. That's pretty awesome. All right, I'm entertained, easily entertained by this thing. Still continues to surprise me. I read on the collection. Thank you. Track file. Thank you. And we're doing this again. Return the tracked files. There's too many exits from here. I guess we wanted to have separate try catches. Okay. Yeah, this is interrupt type stuff, so I guess return try files. No, wait. I put it in the wrong place. Put it in the wrong place. Didn't I? Yes, I did. This is not the code that needs the track files. It's the calculation that needs the track files. This one needs tracked files. Ugh. Oh, but look, I can get rid of this. Okay, cool. Let's do it. All right, we're 5 minutes over. All right, I'm gonna try to get this in real fast so we can see something kind of in the right direction. Because now this contains files is false. Contains files is false. Yeah, okay. Wait, when does this ever get set to true? Oh, there it is, true. Contains files true. Okay. Now, yes, there's that. Now I don't need this because we'll track files only if there's that, and then I can just return it. Track files. There we go. And then this is modules, tracked files. There. And we replace that. Okay, cool. I'm going to leave it there. That's where I'm going to pick up from here. I'm going to go probably work on a few of these things offline, maybe report back to them, and I'll be back next week with something else. I haven't quite decided what we're going to do next week, but I'm sure I should come up with something. So until then, you guys take it easy, and we'll be back next week. Bye.